Okay, let's go ahead and get started. First of all, I want to welcome everybody to the ASC Industry Advisory Committee, and want to at least say that this is the first time we've ever done something like this with ASC, and of course, I guess this is a first. There's a lot of firsts going on right now during the pandemic. So with that, this is the first time, and hopefully we'll see what comes out of it, and hopefully this is something that we can continue on into the future. With me today is Ben Farrow as well, and he and I kind of put this whole thing together to kind of get a sense of our industry and also within academia as well, as far as what's going on during the pandemic with respect to just helping placing our students in either internships or career positions. So with that, currently today, we have Abby Lucero and Aaron Hankey, and they're with Kiewit. We've also got Steve Johnson with Swinnerton Builders, and we've also have Pat Harrington as well with J.E. Dunn. What we tried to do here, part of the goal here was to cover the United States. So I think we've got Swinnerton in California, we've got Kiewit, I believe in Colorado, and then J.E. Dunn on the East Coast, I think in Georgia right now. So I think we've covered the geographic base for what we've got. But with that, what I'd like to at least open up with is let the panelists kind of give a short introduction of what you do within your organization, and then we'll get started with the panelists. So if we could have Kiewit go ahead and probably start with Abby first, and then Aaron.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to give you a brief introduction of myself, my name is Abby Lucero. I definitely see some familiar faces on here, so it's nice to see everybody. I am on Kiewit's University Relations team, and I've been with Kiewit for about 2 years. And I've been able to work with a lot of academic leaders across North America, and it's been really great to be able to see those partnerships we have within the industry and kind of how those relate to students as we bring them on to work at Kiewit. So that's been great to see. I've also been able to work very closely with our university, recruiting team here at Kiewit, and helping them plan events and setting up events that we attend every semester. It's been a great experience for me, and I'm really excited to be here today to be able to share some of those perspectives on a really relevant topic that I think we've all been facing over this last year.
Awesome. And I work really closely with Abby. I've been with Kiewit 6 years. I myself started as an intern, so I was in your shoes if for any of the students that are on the line here. Appreciate you letting us tag team it. Abby is really coming from a relations perspective, and I've been very involved in the recruiting production side of the house since I started as an intern, and now I manage all of the university recruiters in the infrastructure space in US and Canada.
Thank you. And Steve Johnson.
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm right now currently a senior vice president with Swinnerton and a regional manager. The region that I control is all of Northern California, so from Bakersfield north to the Oregon border. My region just this last year finished up about $1.1 billion worth of construction spread over probably about 5 or 6 different divisions. I'm really kind of the top guy that kind of helps to promote all of our division managers to recruit. Our company has also been a big sponsor for well over 20 years at the ASC Region 7 Design Build Competition, and really pretty active in the last probably year or so with really moving our recruiting efforts to more of a national level, but each region and each division has a responsibility to kind of recruit within their own groups. So been here again, probably 23 plus years, and hoping to retire sometime in April of this year. So.
Very good. Pat.
Sure. So I'm Pat Harrington, graduated from Auburn Building Science many years ago. Been with J.E. Dunn for 24 years, located here in Atlanta, but also heavily involved. I'm on the advisory council with Auburn. but also support our national recruiting. And Jay Dunn, I'm in the Atlanta office, part of the East Region. We have 22 different offices coast to coast. So we recruit at 38 major universities, 62 what we consider secondary universities. So as all y'all know, recruiting is the #1 thing that we do in our business. But I'm honored to be on this panel today.
Thank you very much, Pat. So I guess today what we wanted to get started, kind of our agenda, if you will, is we went through our introductions. Then we'll get into a panel discussion and give each of the panelists about 5 minutes or so to kind of hit on some of the maybe key challenges that they're facing during this pandemic in the hiring process with that or within their organization. And then kind of see what are the challenges that they see with the students with respect to the pandemic, and what kind of looking into the future, kind of what that looks like from there. And then once we get done with that, we'll do kind of a open discussion with a little bit of everybody, if they want to chime in on some of the topics that have been discussed there, and then get into a conclusion. We're not necessarily held to this format. Again, this is really kind of an open question and answer session with everyone, and we want to hopefully try and help facilitate that as best we possibly can. So why don't we go ahead and get started? And with this, we'll get started at the top of my list. We'll start in the middle of the US here with Kiewit, and just kind of give us your 5 to 10 minute rendition of what some of the challenges you all are facing within this pandemic right now.
Certainly. So I would say, since the early stages of the COVID-19 pandemic, Kiewit's really tried to put together a cross-functional team, professionals that are really monitoring the situation daily, adjusting to internal guidance and policies, really with the main purpose of safety in mind for all of our recruits, as well as our current employees and anybody that we're working with, subcontractor or client-wise, within site. Within construction, engineering, like everybody on the call here is aware, safety is the top priority, and that means whether somebody's in an office setting or at a construction site. So we've taken it from obviously what's happening internally, but also with how we're working with our universities to ensure that we're collaborating on any changes that could impact recruiting activities. So it's a twofold, and I know there's a lot of firepower here with Steve and Pat within industry. So I'll probably focus a little bit more on the hiring process and what we're experiencing from the recruiting standpoint. I think my time at Kiewit, we've been really trying to push for some of this virtual engagement possibility well before the pandemic. So some of it early on was seen as an opportunity to shift and increase efficiencies with some new creative ways of approaching students and campuses that maybe we didn't have buy-in before, because we do have such strong relationships with the universities we engage with, and a lot of passion from our senior leaders to be physically on campus throughout each semester. So with that, it was a little bit of trial by fire. We had to pivot to the virtual environment, and that buy-in started to get created from the business and understanding how we could engage successfully in these different formats. I mean, early on, of course, the professors and faculty, you guys were all trying to figure out how to execute your curriculum, let alone try to have recruiting events. So that was a challenge early on, just kind of, we had some spring events planned and we had to pivot from there. I think the spring semester, we made do, and then we really tried to set ourselves up for success in the fall timeframe to attack the virtual hiring strategy with what was offered from campus and try to get creative internally. So it was a little bit touch and go, not to say yes to every opportunity, because time and money weren't as much of an issue when you could just log into a Zoom like this or a Teams meeting. So that was certainly a challenge up front, just not overcommitting saying yes to every possible recruiting or engagement activity that we were offered. A challenge we've had, probably more so on the hiring later in the stage of the process, was around our interview days and processes, because we focused very heavily on having candidates come in person and, if possible, to a job site. So that certainly wasn't an option for most of 2020, and still not today. So we moved all of our interviewing to a virtual format. That took some time for sure to get used to, but we're up and running in teams internally with Hewitt, and that's been a big win for us, that I think we could continue to implement in the future. I'll kind of end with, last year, everything shut down right before the intern program would have been really getting off the ground. So that was one of the biggest challenges we faced. I think the executives faced as a decision-making team to decide if we could have it. And so, it was certainly different than what they pictured. We had about 1,000 interns who were set to come on board throughout the US and Canada. And we had to pivot to a virtual experience. So we were excited that we were able to get something off the ground and make the most of the situation. But that was something that, we evolved through the summer and took lessons learned for what the future holds here this year. So that was a major challenge that we faced last year, and it helped kind of grow us into what our processes are today in the fall semester, being heavily virtual, and I imagine will continue to be in a hybrid approach for future seasons as well. So kind of a wide overview there. I'll cut and let someone else cover.
Okay. Sure. Why don't we go with, I'll run down that list. Steve Johnson, why don't you go ahead?
Hey, thanks, Warren. So similar to really what Aaron had described, I mean, pre-COVID, our intern process was really pretty robust. We liked it because it was really dynamic in that we would allow our interns during the summer to kind of move between different operations within our group. Maybe spend 2 or 3 weeks in scheduling, 2 or 3 weeks in estimating and safety and quality and so on and so forth. And the response we got from interns was just overwhelming, that they got introduced to lots of different facets of our business. Post-COVID, that changed immensely. We here in NorCal probably brought on 35, actually last year was 37 for the summer, just in NorCal and across Winterton, coast to coast. We're probably in excess of 100 interns during a summer session. What we do now with COVID around is the students, in essence, are assigned either a job site or an office position, and that's what they need to stay with pretty much throughout the summer, just because of the dangers of moving people around. But what we were able to do is give them some things to do, like get together as groups of 3 or 4 virtually using Microsoft Teams, and kind of capture what they learned during the summer. And one of the things that we're trying to do too is to try to develop some video, and we gave each of the teams a kind of a GoPro camera and asked them what they enjoyed most about their experience in the summer. And what we're trying to do is set some of those videos up to, number one, play to high schools to try to promote construction careers. But secondly, it's really a way to get feedback on what they thought their experience was. A lot of the actual recruiting piece to internships has been really more difficult, because we love the whole idea of doing, pre-COVID, we would do information sessions, go to the campus, spend time talking to the students, and we all loved the fact that we could get to campus and spend time with you as academics and really get the hands-on talking. When that all changed to virtual, it really spun everybody up. We all got to be experts at Microsoft Teams or Zoom or whatever. And what we found is they're across the country, and similar to what Pat described earlier, we have about 30 universities that we call primary universities that we target. We have probably 30 to 35 secondary universities. and a lot of them are pretty much placed wherever our offices are throughout the US. But we've been finding that the majority of the programs that universities are using for virtual, I'll call it hiring or promoting, is software programs called Handshake. Can't say that I use them all. There's another one called Gatherly that apparently is pretty popular. We are using MS Teams, probably more so when we sponsor something related to a virtual either information session or some kind of a virtual career fair. And then Zoom is probably the most prominent across the country. But last year, as I said, we had 37 interns in NorCal. We are expecting to do at least 35 or more students this summer. We're not stopping. We're going to do as much hiring as we did in the past with internships, because that's really that's our future. We have, I was on a committee probably 5-6 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, I guess. And we looked at in the market when construction typically takes a dip, a lot of contractors stop hiring. And that really forces a 5 to 7 year dip in your middle management section of your company. So we've continued to hire even in a down economy, and it's just something that we really have to push ourselves to do. But as I've told most of our division managers, when have you ever had a hard time putting a project engineer to use? You know, if you want 2, then I'm going to push them to hire 4. So it's just it is a new version, a new time that we're in right now. But we're still looking at this year. We've been running almost all of our hiring through virtual. Out of our 35 plus that we're looking for this year, we've already got 24 students who've accepted, and we're hiring for internships. We are using that internship program to actually hire them when they become seniors. So we're probably getting about a 75% retention rate, that once they go through an internship program and get to be a senior, they're usually coming on board full time. So.
Great, thank you very much. So Pat.
Yeah, I'm gonna give a little different perspective, and I know Lauren and Ben and Richard appreciate this, but I think it's important for everybody to hear what the attitude was pre-COVID, and then day COVID hit. And as a large general contractor, you know, one of the first things we had to do is say, oh my God, what are we gonna do? So what we all did across the board, all of our jobs, we all started pulling out contracts. And so we were trying to figure out stability of what's getting ready to happen. And so we went through the contracts and realized that we're covered and we're good, you know, force majeure clauses, we're up, we're working. Then we had to sit there and take an evaluation and say, what's going to happen? You know, are we going to stay open, or we have to shut jobs down? How long can we pay? You know, are we going to hold all the employees? And I'm giving y'all kind of the backfeed of the attitude of the contractor. But as days went by and weeks went by, we realized that this thing's getting ready to keep going. And so then we had to sit there and like Steve and Aaron talked about, we got to think about the future. So we as a company said, look, we've got, and this all happened right between the winter break and the spring semester. So career fairs were all happening and things like that. We realized we had to move forward, and we had commitments out there. So one of the things that we were able to do is honor all of our commitments we had for full-time and interns, which, you know, combined with several hundred offers out there. Unfortunately, and I'm speaking specifically in the Southeast and Atlanta, there are some companies that rolled them all up. They said, nope, you know, we're not going to make any offers. We can't move forward. I mean, we've got verbal commitments and some written commitments, which really kind of alarmed us, because not sure why some companies did that, but we kind of took the conservative approach, and then as things settled down and whatnot, then we continued on, just like Steve and Aaron talked about. You know, the whole thing went virtual. We made offers. You know, safety was always first. It was a burden. I think the burden really is on the students, only because we know what we want and we know what we're going to get. But the students, every time they come out, they're scared to death and doing career fairs and things like that. But now you're going to do it on a computer. You're going to do it virtually. You don't have that eye to eye, that real nice soft contact. And I tip my hat to the students. And the reason why I say that is the students that did well are the ones that really practiced on Zoom meetings and things like that. Presentation skills are so important when you're doing a one-on-one interview, but as we've all found out, is when you're talking and all of a sudden you start falling off the screen and you don't sit up right and you got the wrong height's not right and your head turns. Unfortunately, that weighed heavily on the students, just like it weighs heavily on us when we're doing presentations. When you're presenting, they can't hear you, you don't win a job. And so, you know, the burden has been out there. It's terrible. But honestly, the ones that have done well are the ones that have practiced, the ones that have done well, the ones that have listened. We have a lot of students that call us all the time. What can I do? I say, practice on a computer, practice on how to talk, you know? And so is this going away? Probably not. You know, I think maybe this time next year, we'd all think we're on campus and doing the things that we all do very well. So anyway, I gave it a kind of a different perspective of what COVID did to us initially. And then fortunately in construction, we're very resilient, push forward.
Yep.
Excellent.
And I echo the same that Pat has just said. And what's interesting is in all of the switch to virtual, I kind of was expecting with this newer generation that they would all gravitate towards these tools. We saw a 50% drop in attendance with these tools that are out there. So either there's maybe not enough information getting to the students or something. Maybe it's just the whole, I know a lot of universities are kind of combination virtual and in-person classes and stuff, but a 50% drop in attendance to info sessions and to people who sign up for career fairs is a pretty significant number. And so there is something, I think, we're looking to see what we can do. And I would like to ask the folks here on the panel today with academia to say, what can we do from industry to help you with that? So.
That's a great question. Are there any other general comments that we would like to address? Okay. I guess from here, what we would like to do is get into more of our discussion type questions and really look at it. You know, we've discussed some of these things, but what are some of the challenges that we see with students as they approach their internships, going from really kind of the virtual situation of doing the interview and getting the position, and then now engaging hopefully into the actual position? And once they get there, are there challenges there that we've seen over the past summer or so?
I'll jump in and say, yeah, because as we go down to the universities, we do the one-on-one, you filter, you interview, you bring them up, you bring them to the office, they come up, they walk around, they really understand what's going on, they see it, and then they go back, and then they come back full time, and they know what they're getting ready to expect. Unfortunately, with the way that everything is set up, we can't bring them into the office. Mm-hmm. When they come in here, they are scared to death. They haven't met everybody. They just haven't seen it. And it is so difficult on the students. And we try to do as much as we can to try to put our arms around them to welcome them. But it's a challenge.
Yeah, I would echo the same that Pat just said. You know, when they come on board, half their hiring process is virtual. I mean, here you're coming to a company that touts itself as a very family-oriented company. And the first thing you get to do is you get to sit down with an HR rep to talk about how you get hired. I mean, wow, there's a big disincentive. And then typically in the past, pre-COVID, we would hook them up with a couple of mentors. We have lots of interaction with the students, and now they're really shipped to a job site. They're given all these safety protocols, you know, all the contact tracing, everything that COVID throws at you, and you have to wear a mask and all these things. But boy, I got to tell you, with all the craziness that's there, I was just so proud of our people and of the students who did come on board. man, they took it like troopers. And I think it's going to be good for them in the long run, but we still have a long way to go to get out of this pandemic.
Yeah, and I'll add, I would imagine it's not a surprise to most folks on the call. You know, Kiewit's very big on relocation. Mobility is key, like a lot of companies in the industry. And we've always had issues with people declining our offers or doing an internship and then not thinking it's the right fit for full time, just with the uncertainty of mobility. I would say that's heightened by an exponential percentage with COVID, and understandably so. There's a lot of empathy in the fact that not only the students, but the parents just don't like that uncertainty in general, but throw in a global pandemic and the unknowns of that, it's a whole nother ball game. So the relocation piece has been interesting. I think early on, because we were still hiring, a lot of our jobs were deemed essential and we were still kind of full steam ahead early on. We thought we'll just see an influx of accepts and we'll get people in the door because we're hiring. But we actually saw kind of an increase in declines as the year went on. And now as we've looked back on it, and really the main reason is that not necessarily mobility. I think that's taught well in coursework. And if you want to be with a bigger general contractor, that might be the reality, but more so that first assignment not being known. I think a lot of students are open to the relocation thing, but that first assignment is huge, and not knowing exactly where you might be. If you have to accept an offer as a student, I empathize with you. You're trying to be competitive early on in the fall semester. You may not know where you're going for an internship until March. At least with how we do it at Kiewit. And we're always trying to improve that and make those decisions earlier on. But that's just kind of the reality. Our schedules are changing so often and we want to make it the best impactful experience. And we're not trying to just withhold information to withhold it, but that can certainly be scary. So I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges students will face based on this pandemic and the impact. I think people appreciate being closer to home and near their friends and family. So that's something we're continue to keep a pulse on and figure out how we can evolve as a company.
Okay, excellent. I guess to the panelists, and this reverts to one of the questions on the agenda, how has the training evolved for an intern or even for someone who is going into a career position? How has your training changed with respect to that? And does it look different? I don't know. I'm just going to throw the question out there for y'all.
Again, I'll jump in. Of course, the best training is training on the job site. So the only thing that's changed there is PPE. We got, you got to be masked up, gloves. That's the only thing that's really adjusted there. Our what we call in-house training, of course, has gone virtual. So, but we're pushing forward. We are not letting up on training. We keep everything like it is. So,
excellent.
Yeah, I would echo somewhat what Pat said. We've moved almost all of our technical abilities and technical skills training to virtual, and that will probably stay that way post-COVID. But it's difficult to take what I call attributes and the softer skills, the management training type skills. It's hard to put those in a virtual environment. We are doing some of that, but we are looking to hopefully get free of COVID here in the next 9 to 10 months and get some of that back on track. The on-the-job training is without saying. I mean, our business is very experiential, so people need to be on job sites and need to connect with job sites. But the technical skills is definitely moving towards virtual, but leadership will be a combination of both.
Yeah, and just to kind of touch on it a little bit, shifting gears for Kiewit a little bit, we offer, we do have our training center in Aurora, Colorado, but then we do also have Kiewit University in Omaha, and we've post-pandemic, those were really open for training for a lot of our employees, and we take the opportunity of bringing in some of our employees and offer different training classes within those. And then obviously kind of when the pandemic hit, a little bit put on the pause a little bit, we kind of tried to keep those resources open, obviously still using the staff that works at those training resources to still be able to offer some of that stuff virtual has been really beneficial. And then also, a lot of our e-learning type stuff is offered to all of our employees within our, development resources. And we're still pushing that as much as we can, even though a lot of it is virtual. And then just like a couple of things that we do offer that I'm sure, most of you are pretty aware of is just our, our Build Our Stronger curriculum event that we hold every year. Obviously we had to kind of shift it to virtual in 2020 and most likely going to do the same thing in 2021, but we still try to keep those, those things going because we do see the benefit of having them available, to academia and all that kind of stuff. And then our other event, which is our WCLS, and then we've combined it with our Future Women in QIT. So we invite a lot of our incoming interns, women interns into this event. We still are pushing that really hard. We pushed it hard in 2020, and then we're pushing it hard in 2021 because we still really want to be able to host those events. And the good thing about it is, fortunately, when it is in a virtual setting, there's, kind of an endless number of people that can attend. So we've had that benefit and have really seen some success in that.
Excellent. I guess a little question I had, then eventually we'll flip it to our academia for any questions they may have of you. But you all touched a little bit on being able to overcome the virtual versus in-person interview. And I guess how, as academians, can we help facilitate or open the discussion to the students into what to expect for, say, an online interview? I know a lot of students come to me and ask me, what do I do? How do I do? And I say, well, I first tell them, first of all, number one, you're going to be yourself. And then, number two, you'll do the normal things that we've always talked about. And that is take a shower, dress, and do the appropriate things. And then, from there, it's really all about you and making sure that you do some of the right things. But how should we as academics try and approach that type of question?
Warren, you hit the nail right on your head. Tell the students to be themselves. They're not actors. You're not on TV to be an actor. You're on TV to interview. So, and I'm kind of old school. I think it's all about what you do in an interview. When we go into the universities, we typically like to have it a little bit formal, not completely formal, but a young man needs to wear a nice coat and tie, and a young lady needs to be dressed up. And so even though your background might be your dorm room or apartment, but you need to present yourself in a what I would call a professional manner and be yourself.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. It's amazing what you can really see on the video screen and Zoom or anything else. So if you're going to do an interview with Swinnerton and you're at a party, that's probably not going to go well. And don't show up in a Hawaiian shirt. So I echo what Pat said, but I would offer up, we've had a challenge in getting information sessions set up ahead of any kind of career discussions. And what we could possibly use is, as for companies like Dunn and Kiewit, Swinnerton, and whoever else that's on your list, offer them a pre I'll call it interview day session, call it an information session. What we're doing at those information sessions is we're helping the students get prepared for how to use the tools that are there and what to expect and some of the things that who they're going to be talking to and information about our company. Because if they show up to a virtual career fair and have no idea who Swinnerton is, that's going to be kind of a bland interview. So offering up some kind of an information session virtually with the students would be really helpful in my mind.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. That was really easy on campus because you'd know you'd be there for the fair and you could set that up the night before and really make connections before the fair even started. So that's certainly been something we've missed too. And I think, Pat, you nailed it on the head in the last question of just practice ahead of time with one of your peers. I mean, there's the whole, you don't know if your connection's going to work, what your video is going to look like, and the feedback and all of that. If you can get that out of the way ahead of time, it'll just ease your nerves. I think we do that for presentations on our side and try to just be prepared in that way. I think what's interesting is we'll continue probably moving forward in a hybrid approach. I think the schools probably will. I think we will because, I wholeheartedly agree that in-person contact and meeting can't be beat, but we have gained a lot of valuable interaction and experience in this virtual setting. And I think it'll allow companies to be more strategic in what they're doing and spend in time. And a big shift for us this year has been, our 2021 theme is quality over quantity. And that's sometimes difficult in a virtual setting to decide if it's truly a fit. But I just think that goes back to if you come to that interview, whether it's in person or over a video, and you can tell that you're prepared and you've done your research and you've thought it through, that goes a long way.
Excellent.
Yeah, let me say one more thing, Warren. We sponsored the ASC Design Build competition this year, which was all virtual. And so if you can imagine being a judge of a panel of 6 students all on their own little Zoom screen, I was very impressed with how the students did from a presentation perspective. It was very impressive to see the students really put the same amount of time and effort and to see how well they did. Each of the 6, obviously in a different space, and how well they worked collectively together. So when they're given the opportunity, and I think the ASC competition is a fantastic way for students to kind of get some of that experience, I think they can do it if they're given the opportunity to kind of know how to or what to do to prepare.
Excellent. Okay. So from here, what I'd like to try and do is open the floor to anyone within the academic audience. Do you all have questions of the panelists?
Yes, my name is Min Liu. I'm from North Carolina State University. I have a question in general regarding since the pandemic, we have students taking exams. So the grades, the university allows students to change from the lighter grade to satisfactory, non-satisfactory grade after 1 or 2 weeks they finish the final exam. The university want to do this initially because we don't really have a good way to monitor students' exam and remotely, and also to reduce students' stress level. So we have been doing this for 2 semesters. This is the 3rd semester. But students, they're at their young age, perhaps they only look at the short-term effect. This is easier to change it as or / unsatisfactory. But we really, as a instructors, faculty, we really want to learn how industry will look at this at their transcript from now or 5 years, 10 years from now. Significant portion of their transcript has S on at US versus lighter grade. How the industry will look at this. We want to learn this so we can advise our students properly, because the transcript will go with them for their whole life. Thank you.
Yeah, really good question. Coming from, well, I'll call it 40 plus years ago, when I guess I was in college, and interviewing, the grade point average was usually at the top of most recruiters' list. Today, I don't really think the grade point average is that big of a factor, at least from my perspective and from a lot of our recruiters. It's more of what has the student been involved in? Have they been involved in internships in the past, what other activities they're involved in. I mean, if they're going to come in with a 0.5 grade point average, I think that's probably a downer, but it's probably not the driver that's going to really something we're going to look at. We want someone who's clearly got construction in their eyes, and you can tell that if they've got the passion and a reason for being there. You can find that out in the first 5 or 10 minutes when you're talking to them, and that to me is probably more important, and how they really conduct themselves is probably a bigger reason for us to take a stronger interest in a student rather than a 3.5 and a 4-point grade point average.
Yeah, we're very respectful of the universities, and so however the universities do their grading, and when that young candidate has a degree, be it satisfactory, unsatisfactory, whatever, we don't really care about that, Steve, and we're the same way.
Yeah.
We look at people eye to eye, talk, communicate, personalities, the drive, the intangibles are the differences between a great candidate and a candidate we pass on.
You bet.
Yeah, so I would echo everything you both said. The only thing that maybe I would need to do some more intel in on our side is I've been very heavily involved in hiring on the construction, engineering, or operational side of the house, and we've grown our in-house engineering firm quite a bit over the last decade, and they have a lot more restrictions on their GPA interest, and even furthering into master's degrees and all of that. I'm not as well tuned into that side of the hiring, so that could be something I'd take away and find out. I think it's a valid question, and I can certainly take that away. But from the operational district hiring standpoint, I echo everything Steve and Pat just said. More so being on the candidate and qualifications. If somebody's working through school and they toe the line on a 2.8 GPA, but they've worked hard to get themselves through and have great experience, that's a lot of times more appealing than, the 4.0 that hasn't been involved. So that's my perspective, but I can take that away on our in-house engineering side and see if there's going to be any impacts there.
Excellent question, Min.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I will bring this back to our students and faculty to share with them. Thank you.
Excellent.
I have a question, Warren.
Okay.
I appreciate the fact with these current challenges and companies offered our students the opportunity to make money so that they can pay some of their bills and maintain their health, their mental health. At the same time, learn something remotely, even if it's not as they expect. My question is, how have you been evaluating our students' performance in this digital platform through their internship? And if your criteria for the future after we pass this pandemic would change based on your experiences lately?
So, our interns are on our job sites. 99% of them are on the job site. So our evaluation is pre-pandemic, post-pandemic is the same. I wouldn't say we're being hard on them, but we're out to build and we're for profit. And so we have to satisfy our clients and our obligations. And so we want the very best to do that. So we have not let up. We have not given any kind of softness to the interns because of pandemic. In fact, I think we might have been a little bit the other way to keep them from being soft. It's just to keep pushing and push like hell.
Yeah, we use really kind of an online performance evaluation form, and at the beginning of their internship, they're given kind of some objectives and some key things that they need to work on during the summer. And at the end of the summer, not only are we having 1 or 2 people work through and actually talk to that student almost on a performance evaluation basis on what we thought they learned and then versus what they thought they learned. And that's all get captured in a performance evaluation. And in the past, because they were crossing over different departments, you would have a team of 3 to 5 people, people at the job site, people in the office, and so on and so forth, providing feedback on how they felt that student performed during a summer. So we don't have grades, but that written and verbal feedback from our people is really important to see whether or not that student would make it to a formal offer.
Awesome. So I do want to get to a couple questions within the chat. And here we have, I'll read it out. So have companies considered a hybrid approach in which part the internship is virtual in order to minimize exposure? Also, our research study assessing the impact of COVID-19 on the construction industry found a disparity between engineering, architect organizations, and contractor technology readiness. What efforts have contractors undertaken to allow for such a hybrid experience? I think we touched on some of that, but maybe retouch on some of the question there.
So again, like I said earlier, you know, our interns, we try to get them on the job sites, but at the same time, we also have to be obligated by the safety of the sites and the students. We don't, I have to take a step back. We don't want to intimidate students and put them in a situation where they feel unsafe. That would be a failure on our part. So safety is absolutely first. In our office in Atlanta, we probably only have about a 50% occupancy, is where a lot of our managers typically gravitate to the job site. There's a little bit of room they can spread out on and things like that. So we do have some that we move around from job site, and then we'll put them in the office to have them a little bit spread out just for safety reasons.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would say it's pretty much the same. I agree wholeheartedly with Pat. Almost all of our students were issued out to job sites because our job sites really buckled down and got to understand the protocols and set up the right protocols to operate. Probably our offices are running about 50% or less on staffed, but just having them focused and knowing that there are certain things that they're being asked to learn during the summer and get involved with is really kind of important. We want to have that set up for success. So having that first meeting when they first get there to understand what they need to focus on has been super important for us.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I'll just quickly add, I think we had originally hired 1,000 interns last summer, and we ended closer to 800 with people just deciding it wasn't the right fit for them at that time, or with school schedules changing. That was a big reality last year. I actually think we ended up with almost half of those folks in a virtual work experience program, which, to Stephen Pat's point, that certainly wasn't what we hoped for or as ideal, but we did shift to that with, just based on site and location. And really, I do think that the managers had a hard time deciding if they should be offered another opportunity. And it really was about the ability to see that collaboration or go above and beyond in certain ways as much as you can in a virtual environment. So I think a lot of people had maybe a bit more leniency in terms of getting another shot for another internship if they were in a virtual program. I think we decided to implement another interview if they were intern to full-time opportunities. So that's just a note there. And for this coming summer, no formal decisions have been made across the board, but I'm on the intern committee, and the executives are very high priority on getting as many, if not all, of our interns to site this summer. So we shortened our goals a little bit. I think we're closer to 700 across US and Canada, and that's the goal with safety in mind, of course.
I guess it does kind of tag into one of the questions, and hopefully it was kind of answered within what we've just stated, is, and this is a chat question, is there a difference in merit in students that you are looking for in a virtual interview versus or compared to a face-to-face interview? Is there some type of merit that's associated with that, or is that equal all the way across the board?
It's equal.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's equal. I don't see any difference here.
Excellent. Is there anybody else within the academia group that would like to ask a question?
Yeah, can I ask a question? Thanks for doing this for us. So I'd like to know how the panelists feel about Handshake, because you know, we, like most, I think like a lot of the schools on this call, we have a pretty high contact student services. We're working with them every day on getting their interview skills going, and Handshake is controlled by our university, not by our department. I guess I'm just, so I'm curious if that works for you, or if you would like, if it would be better for you if at the department level, we worked with your local people directly to set up Zoom interviews with individual students, kind of like we would in a traditional career fair setting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure does. This is really interesting. We're all talking about face-to-face. However, we all do all Handshake and we do these interviews and everything. Everybody goes, well, damn, that was pretty good. So Handshake has been, I think, has been better than we all had expected it. Again, I think we're all becoming IT experts, and we practice beforehand. We practice a lot before we start, but I give it an A. We've been very successful with it.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's worked out better than we thought. But you know, still we're contractors, we don't control everything. So if anybody could get on Microsoft Teams, then I'd be happier. But you know, one of the interesting things that I got, I've known several of you folks on the screen today, and I got to meet Peter Hilger at University of Minnesota probably, I don't know, a couple of years ago. Really cool thing that he did is he took a collage of, I don't know, 26 or 28 students that all wanted summer internships and sent me the entire list of resumes of students who wanted a summer internship. Wow, that was cool. I could get that entire list and I can ship that off to our entire national recruiting team. And then I can start laser focusing on how to set up something at the school. So that helps to kind of get the ball rolling, if you know what I'm saying, and making a little more focused effort other than showing up to university saying, okay, here's your Handshake password and this is how you get in, and wait for somebody to pop up on the screen. So.
Yeah, and I can kind of speak to it a little bit. I'm pretty familiar with Handshake, and definitely on the more of the back end of it, use it on a daily basis. And I think I've even had some conversations with some of you on here about the process and kind of moving into a little bit more of a virtual setting within Handshake. I think it's been great. I think that they've definitely come up with a lot of ways that have been very helpful for the students, but also on the employer side as well. Just, you know, with registering for some of the events that we're attending, they've made it pretty easy. And I think that they've listened to feedback that have come directly from employers. Because I think that in the beginning, I know in the fall, a lot of it was a little bit more difficult, but they've definitely taken some of our feedback and kind of implemented that in their system. So I think it's been really great. I think, you know, as on the recruiting team, that we definitely use it, you know, the benefits of being able to kind of source, you know, lots of different candidates if we're trying to campaign and reach, you know, bigger groups to let them know, hey, like we are coming to campus. I think we've definitely found a benefit in that. But kind of, you know, I do think that there is a need for a little bit of both, kind of going off of your original question. I think there has to be a little bit of both, even though I do think it's a good system. And I think that, you know, across the board, it's probably the most preferred from what I've seen just on my side of it.
Awesome. So I do know, speaking of hands, I knew Tulio, did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. My name is Tulio. I work here at the University of Texas, San Antonio. And we have basically moved most of our operations online, teaching, meetings, etc. And to be honest, we all have learned a great deal about doing teleconferences with Zoom, Microsoft Teams, etc., etc. So the question is, now that we have a new generation with a new set of skills, what will be the next thing that we need to learn? Because now we can have meetings and this is now normal, but what is the next set of skills or knowledge that we as a faculty should be teaching the students to build upon that new ability for our students to interact and to work remotely as have never happened before in this group that is here?
So I'm gonna make something funny sounding, but you know what we're scared to death of is in 6 months, 10 months, or a year, are we going to forget on how to handshake?
Yes.
I'd listen. I walk past people in the office and we all have to play. We can't look at each other. We can't say anything to each other. It's going to be an interesting situation when you go out and reach out and shake somebody's hand, because what we're fearful of is that somebody's going to, be all surprised. So not to make light out of it, but I think how to handshake.
I'm 100% behind what Pat said. This thing all goes virtual. Damned if this is going to be the death of our industry. But I will say that these tools have all gotten better.
Yeah.
Microsoft Teams and Zoom used to just bail on you in a heartbeat. They've all gotten better, and we will definitely see those tools improve our business. But there is no way, in my opinion, speaking as probably the old guy in the room here, we cannot ever get away from being there in person and talking to each other. And that was one of the things I hated most, is that one of our guys said, we got to give these interns cell phones. And I go, hell no, they all got them. They need to figure out how to talk to people and not text people and message people. It's still an experiential and a personable business, in my opinion. So I'm holding tough.
Excellent.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I was just going to kind of, mention one thing. I think if anything that we've learned throughout this year and this pandemic is just how to be adaptable. And I think that's one of the biggest things that, you can bring back and really teach your students is, even in the workforce, things are going to change and things are going to happen, and they just have to be able to adapt to those new changes, adapt to the new technology, whether it is in person or whether it is in virtual. Just having that trait, that quality is going to go a long way.
Awesome. Okay. Any other questions for anybody within the academic group?
This isn't a question, but I just wanted to say thank you for the wisdom that you guys have shared with us and change your perspective. This was a great event.
I'll ask again, what can we do to help you? I know you wanted to hear from us today, but is there anything else that we can do to help your academic world with this process of engaging students in their career paths and getting them ready for the big world afterwards?
I guess if I can comment on this a little bit, one of the things that we've really been faced with is trying to get the students somewhat engaged into info sessions. And I'm not sure if I'm speaking for everybody, but I know for myself, it's been a challenge, and it's a little disheartening knowing that I've got about 160 students out there, and I know some already have jobs, but knowing how to get them involved and trying to get them involved has been a major challenge. When you only see 5 to 6 students appear at an info session, it is a bit of a challenge. It is a little bit disheartening because I want to get at least 25 people in there. I can't really do that through virtual pizzas. It's pretty difficult, but it is what it is. So,
Well, Warren, I will say this: the ones that don't try, they're not going to get the best job.
Yeah, true.
The ones that do try, the ones that put forth the effort, the ones that really, really dig in and want to do better are the ones that get the best job.
Yeah.
And look, we're not academia, we're for profit. So we get to pick and choose who we want. So and it resonates. Even on Zoom meeting, we can tell exactly when a kid wants it, and it shows.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to the pizza token, I think you're spot on, Pat. But to the pizza token, I got to give Abby a huge shout out because our relations team came up with an idea that if we have people attend we call it high impact focused activities. So anything outside of a career fair, so info session, org presentation, classroom, whatever it is, we sent out Uber Eats vouchers.
Mm-hmm.
So we just did I think $10 maybe, for one meal, and it expired at a certain time. So they needed to use it correlating to the event. So that worked, but you still have people coming for the quote pizza then at that point. I think where we've had more success is more targeted events with student orgs. if we can do a guest lecture in a classroom because they have to be there is always nice to just get the brand out. And then you kind of tell the people, the students who go above and beyond and they get your contact information, they take the initiative to reach out to you after the presentation and ask about opportunities to connect. I think that's worked well as well.
Excellent. So we do have a question from Sut Gunham, if I said it correctly. Correct me if I am wrong.
Thank you, Philip. I'm the Director of Construction Management Program at Kent State University in Cleveland area. So I just want to tell that our recent survey among our faculty, construction faculty, there's a great desire to be back face-to-face for full semester.
Good.
So construction faculty really is really missing face-to-face interaction. And I completely, I agree with Stephen that construction is people's business. So the leadership side, there's no way we need to be face-to-face. And I agree that technology side, we will definitely use to improve our effectiveness. These meeting setups, these platforms, maybe we will travel less together for meetings. But other than that, I strongly believe that our industry is will prefer face-to-face interaction. And that's, even though we had the career fairs, the last two career fairs, 2 semesters, handshake, extremely successful, very, very well. University congratulated us, having a great turnout. But like again, the general perception among faculty, they just want to be back to classrooms. And thank you for this event today.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other questions or comments by faculty on what the industry can do to help us out? Oops, go ahead.
I think actually, Tulio, I think you've had your, okay.
You go.
I was going to ask, what advice do you get, would you recommend we give to our students for these virtual career fair events when they're told they're not interviews, right? They're told those time slots are not interviews, but then they come back and say, we just felt like we were interviewed. So can y'all talk to that specific thing?
Sure, I'll jump in on that. But Lauren, you know for a fact, anytime I'm around a student, I am interviewing that student. If I'm talking to you and they're watching me, or I'm watching them talk to you, if I am doing anything with a student, it is full-on interview. And you have got to tell them that.
So I think it scares them though, especially someone who hasn't done it before. So what would you recommend I tell them?
They're gonna have to learn to grow up. They gotta practice. They gotta practice, man. It's just, that's the fun thing about it. I love going down to the college campus. I get, you heard me say it before, I get butterflies. I love to get nervous and talk to the students. Yeah. They got to learn how to control it. And again, survival of the fittest, the ones that do well, the ones that get the good job.
Yeah, I would echo everything Pat said. Dive in. Okay, you don't get experience interviewing unless you do it. So the first couple are probably going to be horrible, but you know what? Keep doing it. And
practice.
It's the same way with me. If I'm talking to a student, I'm sizing that student up to see, are they swearing to material or not? And I know it's bad, but that's our crazy for-profit world that we're in right now. So we're all competitive as heck.
Yeah, excellent.
I would recommend they get into, and maybe we as industry could promote more of the info sessions, which are not quite the what I would consider to be the interview session. It's more about sharing information, allows them to ask questions, and so maybe pushing an info session ahead of that would be helpful.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Maybe that's something that we at ASC members could probably think about from our perspective as well.
Yeah, we're suckers for, doing info sessions. We love to talk about ourselves. So, hey, we're easy to do those things.
Yeah. Well, excellent.
Lauren,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, Lauren, I think from a interviewer standpoint, though, we have told, our interviewers have come back and said the same thing. Like, I'm talking to a first semester freshman who's super eager, but we may not have a role for them today. So how does that conversation flow? And I do think we've tried to take that feedback a little bit and make that, because handshake setup is like 10-minute slots or 15-minute slots you're videoing. It would be very similar to a Teams interview that we'd have in the final stage. So I agree with, what Pat and Steve are saying, but I hear where there could be some confusion. I think we've tried to give that feedback to our participants and not interviewers, but participants for the events as well, to make it a little bit more conversational up front. But at any token, if they have a chance to present themselves and they do a good job, that could very well lend itself to an interview. So
I would recommend that even freshmen get into those sessions, because let's be honest, folks, the industry still has a higher demand than there are students out there. I could tell you 10 years ago, we were all still doing the senior college tour and hiring seniors only, but that is gone. Probably of the 37 interns, we had at least 5 that were freshmen, sophomores. So the quicker they get into it, the better off they're going to be.
Sure. Awesome. Any other questions amongst the group itself?
I just have I have a quick question. I'm Jen Warner. I'm an assistant professor and the internship coordinator for Ball State University's construction management program. And maybe I'm the only one on the call, but we've got a great relationship with Kiewit, but Pat and Steve, we don't have a recruiting relationship with Swinnerton or J.E. Dunn. So don't know if we could have your contact information, because there's some great construction management students up here in Indiana that would be great members of your team. So I'm going to put maybe I'm the only one that needs to do a selfish plug for my own program, but would love to get connected to the employers on the call if there's other programs.
Come visit.
Yeah.
Oh, we would love to have you. So
absolutely. I'm happy to take your contact information and have our national recruiting team reach out to you, Jennifer.
That would be perfect. I'll put it in the chat. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see.
Do we have time for one more quick one?
Sure, one more quick question, then we'll try and get her wrapped up out of. Go ahead.
So we set up Zoom rooms for our students to use for interviews, and they're just classrooms we're not using. But what I heard the panel say is you think this is going to be more or less a permanent situation. So maybe we need to be migrating or thinking towards finding some spaces we can set up as little Zoom rooms. So we each have our own place that students can go to do their Zoom interview instead of their kitchen table or something. Do you think that's a smart way to go?
I really hope this thing is temporary. We're all hoping this thing's over with this time next year. So,
okay.
But I think the discussion to the students is be cognizant of your background. Right. Zoom has generic backgrounds. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you want to express your feelings, that's okay.
Yeah, I would echo what Pat said. Maybe the fact that they would have a classroom as a Zoom background is going to push them into thinking of it more formally. Yeah. And so I would encourage that, but I'm 100% behind Pat. This has got to end, because I want to go back out to those universities and I want to talk to them face to face. But even if the pandemic continues, I would promote that we look at safe practices and we put ourselves 10, 12 feet apart, and at least we can sit there in the same room. So I'm an advocate to find a way around this thing and do it safely. But I want to get back to talking to students in person.
Yeah, we'll host the first party. We'll pick up the tab. I'm ready.
Awesome. Okay. One of the things that I did do is I provided all the email contacts for everyone on the panelist group, for Abby, Aaron, Steve, and Pat. So all that information is below in the chat window there. So if you want to contact any of our panelists after this session, feel free to do so. Also, this is recorded and it will be shared on our ASC listserv somehow. I'm sure Ben and I will work with ASC to make that happen. So with that, I would truly like to thank everyone on the call, and especially Abby, Steve, Aaron, and Pat for taking time out of your busy Fridays to join us. And I hope that this is something that we may be able to do later on in the future with in a different format somehow. Maybe we can do it live somewhere at a real live conference, you know, where we could actually see each other live. So, and handshakes as well. So with that, again, I want to thank everybody for showing up today. And if you have any further comments, feel free to reach out to myself or even Ben Farrow, and we'd be more than happy to facilitate any other questions that you all may have. Okay. Thank you very much for being with us.